Welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm your host, Reanna Hoffman, and this is a space for women learning to wait well and live fully. Whether you're in the middle of uncertainty, transition, or just figuring out what's next, this podcast is here to remind you you are not behind, not forgotten, and definitely not just waiting. Let's dig into truth, grow in courage, and hold on to hope together. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. Today's guest is Rachael, the voice behind Coffee with Rach. Rachael is 28 years old and has quite the journey behind her, from growing up in California to moving to Kansas City for seminary and now calling Nashville, Tennessee home. By day, Rachael works as a reseller, and alongside that, she's a thoughtful writer who isn't afraid to engage the hard, honest conversations. Much of her writing centers on singleness, biblical sexuality, and the way the Western church navigates sexual sin, with clarity, grace, and deep love for the truth of Scripture. Rachael brings a grounded, courageous perspective to faith and formation in the waiting, and I know this conversation will challenge and encourage you in all the right ways. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I am so excited for you to meet my new internet friend, Rachael from Coffee with Rach. She is on Substack and Instagram. Are you on more social media platforms? Those are the two places I have you.
Yeah, no, not too much, no.
It's really cool. I love stumbling on people on the internet because we never would have met in real life. You live halfway across the country and I live on the East Coast. So there's no way that we would have met in person, but I love that we get to meet on the internet. What a joy and a privilege.
Yeah, it's so fun, showing up and being oh, I've never met you before, and now we get to chat.
Absolutely. Cool. So our friends may not know this, but we just started a brand new series. It's our Becoming series. We just hopped off of our Time, Talent, and Treasure series, and we're kind of talking about who we're becoming while we wait. We talk about that people are in a waiting season all the time, whether they're single, married, waiting on small people, or if they're older and just waiting on Jesus. Everybody is in a waiting season. And so in this series, we're kind of chatting about who we're becoming while we wait, because a lot of times we focus on what we're waiting for. We have an end goal in mind and you're I'm going to eat chocolate cake and ice cream when I get to this end goal. And sometimes we never get to the end goal, and we're trying to figure out how we can celebrate who we're becoming in the middle of it. Does that sound cool? So I have a couple questions for you, Rachael. Are you ready? Question number 1. Who do you sense God has been forming you into in this season, especially in the ways that aren't visible or celebrated?
Yeah, I think someone who is very kind and gracious with themselves, because Christ has, been gracious to me and kind to me. Yeah, I think a lot of people we're really, really hard on ourselves, and it's kind of corny, but we're really our own worst bullies. And I have just been so hard on myself for so long, and I'm that's not the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And just shifting that, and that's kind of a big focus of mine right now, is just to be a lot kinder to myself. And I think the word performative comes up too, of I don't want to be performative, and I don't want as either a writer, content creator, or just anyone, it's very easy to spend time in the word and then immediately post about what you learned, which is not always bad, but it's kind of you're already sharing before you even let the words seep in. And so just having my quiet time be more sacred, and my quiet time truly be a time of just soaking with the Lord, and letting that almost age fine or good wine, before just immediately going out to the public with it, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have any practical tips on doing that? Because I know that my inner voice is the meanest person alive. So do you have anything practical, or you're just trying?
Yeah, I think practical tips is just like when I start like I think all of us kind of relate in some way of like the spiral of like if something happens that kind of like triggers you and then you know, uh I don't know, like you start going down like the list of like this and this and this and like you
Ugh.
keep piling up on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a very clear indication that like you're bullying yourself. And so it's like I think in that moment of like tangibly always asking myself, would I say this to another human being? No, I would not. Especially to like a friend. And I think stopping in my tracks and being like, okay, that is not true. This is my like deepest fears coming out. So let's like and then it's like kind of reworking of like obviously I'm feeling something. So like what am I feeling? I'm actually just feeling hurt or I'm feeling I don't know, whatever emotion I'm feeling. And then it's like with that, I can then take that to the Lord in prayer or then go to the word and be like, what does the word actually say about like who I am rather than
Mhm.
like, yeah, almost like, I don't know, like a filter of like, like viewing things through a filter of like what the word says rather than what what my fears are trying to convince me of. And so it's like a lot of, I think, tangibleness of like stopping in your track and like really being like, okay, my head went to like a really insane place right there. Let's back up.
That's really good, like, a very good practical tip because a lot of times, like, the things you say to yourself, you would never tell another soul. Like, you wouldn't say that to anybody's face.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't text it to somebody. And then, like, having that mind work of, "Okay, where am I going with this? What does the Lord want me to do with this information, and does it need to be shared right now?" Like, I love that because you're
Yeah.
taking that time and you're being super aware of what the Lord is doing in your life and you're letting him move instead of being like, "Okay, cool. I got this. This is what I read this morning. This is what I'm gonna share." And it becomes very like you used a word, production based, performance based. Performative is the word you used. And
Mhm.
it like to a degree, sometimes when we are content creators and we do write and we have nothing to write about what we're currently living because we've run out of content. And it's like, okay, so I gotta do my quiet time this morning so that I can post that I read Matthew 5 this morning and we can let our light shine, like stuff like that. And I see you kind of grinning at me because you feel it in your you've done it, maybe not done it, but like you've seen other people do it. And so I love that you gave us this practical tip of like, just let it resonate for a minute. Let it grow and develop like a good fine wine so that you can talk out of freedom instead of what you're currently living through. So I love that. I have another question for you. Was there a season where God seemed more focused on shaping your character than advancing your calling? And what did that form in you?
Yeah, that is a good question because I lived in Kansas City for 4 years when I went to seminary and yeah, there's just really not a lot of quote unquote ministry happening or, it didn't feel like I was quote unquote walking in my calling, especially as like someone who's been like somewhat public for the last really 8 years, and so that's just, like, a very normal thing for me, and so, like, I feel like the Lord was kinda having me be a bit more private, and, like, not a lot was happening with, like, either opportunities or this or that, but really, like, during that time, like, the Lord just was having me, like, learn what it looked like to be a good, like, church member and to, like, care for others, and for people to care for me and, like, knowing how to receive that, um, especially because during that time, like yeah, I was just, like, really struggling with, like, depression and, like, was, like, deep in, like, the pit of, like, constant temptation of, like, despair, and
Mhm.
Um, during that time, I really feel like the Lord softened me, and it was, like, almost like what Paul talks about with, like, the thorn in the flesh of, like, it felt like depression no matter what I did, no matter what I prayed, no matter counseling, whatever, like everything was doing right. Like it was just like a thorn that would not leave my side. And so being like, yeah, just I think he used that to soften me as someone who's very like assertive and confident and black and white and opinionated. Yeah, he just used that to soften me a lot. And yeah, and I think now I'm like seeing the fruit of that. Um and now, quote unquote, either not things are happening, but like I feel like that season's kind of done. And now I'm like, okay, live in a new place. I feel like the season's just different. And yeah, just being able to reflect on his faithfulness during that season was just really sweet, or has been really sweet.
I love that. I love that you've noticed that the season has shifted. Because a lot of times I think we get so caught up in what we're doing and just doing the same thing over and over and over again because we're humans and that's what we do. And I love that you noticed that what he was forming in you and that season has now shifted and that he's doing something else in you. And I love that. I think that's really cool. Hey, friend, before we continue, I want to share something that I created for those of you who are in a waiting season right now. If you're waiting on clarity, direction, healing, or a next step, and you're tired of feeling like this season is just something to get through, I made a companion resource called the Guide to Becoming. It's a scripture based reflection guide designed to help you stay rooted, honest, and present while you wait. Not to rush forward, but to help you notice who God is forming you to be right here. You can download the Guide to Becoming right now. Just check the link in our show notes. Remember, you're not behind. You're not forgotten. You are becoming. Now back to our conversation. I have another question. What have you had to release, expectations, timelines, your identity, in order to become who God is inviting you to be now?
Hmm. Yeah, I think because like nothing quote unquote was happening, um, I saw it as like God was like done with me, or like I had messed up too many times, or like I had missed the bus, and like my opportunity window for X, Y, or Z was done. But really being like, okay, like you actually have just been doing like insane heart surgery on me, and like really working through a lot of hurts and traumas or this or that. And really like before, I don't want to say exalting me, because that just kind of sounds like really like, I don't know, aggressive almost, but like, before any kind of further ministry happened, he like stopped me in my track and was like, okay, we're gonna like quietly work on these things so that like if any other fruit were to like happen and take place in the future, we're going to make sure your heart is like still focused on me. um I mean, one of the most like formative scriptures is First Corinthians 3, um where like Paul's talking about everyone builds on something, and when it is tested, it's basically either going to like fire's going to come, and it's either going to like burn down because it's not on good foundation and it's not built upon like good foundation, or it's going to be like refined by the fire. And I feel like, yeah, during this past season, it was like the things that needed to be burned down and demolished were demolished. And that was really hard. And so now we're like rebuilding. And I think that comes in like with what I was saying earlier of like being like gracious to myself because the Lord has been gracious to me, and being like, okay, like, yeah, just, yeah, being gracious as like we go through the process, and like not trying to figure out and nitpick everything that I need to be better at. But it's like in time, the Lord will reveal those things. And he will be faithful to like tearing them down. um, in the most like gracious way. And yeah, so yeah, I could keep going, but yeah, it's just there's just so much to it, and it's been such a good process.
Yeah. And I love how you said he's faithful in tearing it down too. Because a lot of times I feel like we don't remember that because we focus on the Lord is gracious, and He is. He is so gracious and so kind and so compassionate, but He's also doing good work in us. And sometimes that's tearing down things that we've built that are in the way. And you're right, that season is
Yeah.
so hard. So hard. Mm,
Yeah. And it's like such a good thing because, scripture says that like a good father does, he like disciplines his children. And that like I think some people are like discipline of like, I don't know, they can take that as like being a lot of different ways of like violence or this or that. But it's like, no, like discipline of like correcting. And like even in my like Bible reading today, it was like talking about the spirit and the spirit's role in our lives. And it's like, it's to keep us, it's to teach us, it's to comfort us, and it's to correct us. And it's like we're yeah, just like children who are like wandering and like don't have a map and we're just gonna like keep going. And then like the Lord just shifts us when we need to be shifted. And like that's not a bad thing. It's actually like the best way so that we get to the destination. Um and what a good father that we have that he would do that, you know?
absolutely. I think it's so cool that we get to be guided by the Lord because He could just
Yeah.
let us have a free for all and like the world would have gone up in flames multiple times by now. I mean, it already technically has. I mean, look at Sodom and Gomorrah. But I love how the Lord gives us boundaries, but He also refines us. You were talking about being refined earlier. And as a small person, I always heard the word refined and was like, yeah, I want to be refined. And then like I looked up what it meant. And it was like to be burned like silver. And it's like, I don't know that I want that kind of refining.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through the hard stuff so that the Lord can make me better. And a lot of times in that becoming season, that's what the Lord's doing. Is He's taking the things that we have held on too tightly to or that we've been shaped by through circumstances that we couldn't necessarily control. And He's removing that so that He can be made better in us. And that's the most beautiful part of the waiting period. It's the least fun part, in my opinion, of the waiting period. But it's so vital in where we're gonna land and where the Lord is moving us and where He's directing us so that He can use us in the way that He wants us to.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
I totally agree. And it is, yeah, so difficult to wait. And yeah, and I think something it's like ever since moving and like that season has been done, um, it's like I think, yeah, oftentimes it's like being like, oh my gosh, the Lord's so faithful to bring me out of that. But it's like, yeah, reflecting on, well, what are the ways that he was faithful in that season too? Um, and that's just like so sweet to not just be like, "Oh, he did what I wanted finally," but, like, in that time, kind of yeah, like, even your question of, like, during that, like, during the storm or, like, whatever, it's like, yeah, how was he forming? How was he working? How is yeah, because yeah, he doesn't waste anything, and he uses all the things to, yeah, just make us look more like him and bring us to sanctification, which is really hard.
That's so hard. I want to be sanctified, but I don't want to be sanctified that way, Lord.
Right.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you because the podcast is called Not Just Waiting, and we know that everybody is waiting in some shape, fashion, or form, and that we need to be actively waiting instead of passively waiting. Passively waiting for me looks like sitting on my couch and eating peanut butter cookies. That is not how we should be waiting every day. Now, every so often, there's a time and place for that. But how are you waiting well in your current season? Because again, we're all waiting for something.
Yeah, I think for me, really taking it, like, day by day. And I think so much with like waiting coincides, I think, with most people of like, do not be anxious for
Mhm.
tomorrow or like for today has enough like worries of its own. And I think like really truly taking that to heart of like taking it day by day and like trusting for what he says of like his word is a lamp to our feet and to our steps and like tangibly. And I think that's honestly like something good too that I learned from like either like my time struggling with depression is like sometimes you literally have to take it hour by hour, day by day. And I think that there was actually a lot of deep like anchored trust and like practical trust that was learned during like by learning how to walk day by day, um trusting that like the grace that he has given me for that morning or like in that morning when I wake up, the grace that he's given me is sufficient to complete that day. And tomorrow we will cross that bridge when it comes. And so I think in line with like waiting, it's like not looking ahead of what's tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, but like, okay, tangibly, what can I do today? How can I be faithful today? How can I dismantle untrue things and lies? And how can I like be obedient and enjoy the Lord today? Because like bit by bit, he will continue building the strong foundation so that when, yeah, like the cycle continues of like when the fire comes, it can withhold the fire and actually be, like, stronger because of it. Um, and that's, like, not to say that, like, there aren't hard days, you know? It's not like this, like, picture perfect, I'm just gonna have the Lord's, lamp be each my steps and this and that, but it's like, today actually might be harder, and there actually might be harder weeks, but and, like, there might be more losses than wins, but there still are wins, and there still is bits of goodness each day, and yeah, just, like, taking it in smaller strides rather than big bits that I think our mind often goes to, if that makes sense.
That was great and fantastic and very, like, practical, and I love that you're like, "I've learned this thing, and this is what I've learned from it." And your minute you were talking about, like, it being a lamp, and a lot of times when we read that verse in Psalm 119, you're like, "A lamp, okay, so it's gonna show me the whole path." And, I don't know about the lamps in your house, but the lamps in my house show me, like, a 6-inch diameter, circumference, whatever the word is, um, around what's there. And so when you were talking about taking it, like, moment by moment pretty much, and the Lord teaching you in that, I think that's very truthful for a lot of us that have dealt with, like, depression and anxiety, or even just hard seasons that you don't know what's next. And so, thank you for sharing that with us. Like, that was really, really good. Is there anything else that you wanna share with our listeners today?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think just I mean, I guess, like, I don't know, an encouragement of, like, yeah, just e even considering, like, what lamp meant to them back when, like, this was written is like a candle. So, like,
Yep.
the light was even smaller. Um, and so, yeah, and I think it all just goes back to, like, being kind to yourself of, like, why are you expecting to know this for yourself? Um, yeah, just, like, it's not kind to yourself to expect you to know in all these things when, like, the Lord has not revealed it, so you're just, like, putting expectations on yourself that aren't fair too, you know? I don't know. I guess I could go on and on because, yeah, it's just yeah, we just need to chill, and I wish that was easier said than done, or done
I
than said.
agree. I agree. I totally agree. If you could get my brain to just chill, that would be great. That would be so good. Well, it has been
It's
so
great.
fun.
Yeah.
This has been so fun. You have given us some great insights. Friends, I'm going to link Rachel's Coffee with Rach Substack and Instagram in the show notes. So be sure you go follow and like and say thank you for jumping on the podcast, because you're going to want to follow her content too. So that means you need to go click it right now and let it pop up on your phone and hit subscribe and follow and then come back. Okay, cool. Otherwise, it has been a joy and a privilege. Thank you so much for kicking off our Becoming series. I don't know if you knew that you were our first guest on our Becoming series, which is so fun. And we will see you guys later. Bye, friends. Thanks for listening to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I hope today reminded you that even in the in-between, God is working and you are not alone. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend? And don't forget to hit follow so you never miss a moment of truth, hope, and real conversation. You can find me on Instagram at reanna.ivy.hoff and join the community over on Substack for deeper reflections and weekly encouragement. Until next time, take heart, friend. God is in the waiting with you.